that kids that were involved on first teams were 3 times more likely to finish high school than their peer equivalents. Not 3%, 3 times. They were 4 times more likely to study science and engineering and some of the difficult stuff. They were way more likely if they were women and minorities. The numbers were even bigger. So we are so convinced that FIRST is such a powerful leverage that it really ought to be in every school in this country. And the one piece of local data I'll give you is your state, which has somewhere north of 500 high schools, has more than 120 high schools in this program.
133.
130
teams, yeah.
Which puts you in the lead on a percentage basis in the country. And some of the great, great companies in this state have been with us literally since the beginning. And even with all you hear in the news about General Motors having its troubles, General Motors is one of the biggest supporters we have. The vice chairman of General Motors, Tom Stevens, has been on the board of directors of FIRST, and he comes to every board meeting, and he is so committed. It's, I think, one of the reasons Michigan has got such a powerful following for FIRST. And you can ask Tom, he'll tell you the schools that have FIRST teams have a very, very different set of expectations and outcomes than the schools that don't. And the other force you have in this state, also on our board of directors, who was a very senior technology guy at, among others, Chrysler, is Francois Castang.
Yes.
And Francois is sort of single-handedly created a whole new model to test in the state of Michigan, because we realize now, with 43 cities holding regionals, with thousands of schools involved, what can we do to scale FIRST so that we can get to the 28,000 high schools in this country? What can we do now that we're growing to take advantage of our scale, reduce the barriers, make it more cost effective so that every school can participate? And Francois and a team of very dedicated volunteers here in Michigan last year said they're going to try an experiment for us. And instead of doing 1 or 2 of our 43 regional events, they're going to do events that are more locally focused. Right. They did 7 of them, 7 in the state of Michigan over the last few weekends, and then they finished the season with a major regional. But it looks like this model could make it much, much more credible that every school in the state of Michigan could be part of FIRST over the next couple of years with a little help from government. And then that model should be shown around the country. And there'll be some states and some areas where that model might not work. But there are many, many places around this country that could follow the leadership of Michigan and hopefully get to way more kids.
Well, there's no question. We can see your passion. And you're talking about something that's happening right here, right now. It's called the Michigan Model for Robotics. I need to share with you that I'm a former school psychologist, and I saw those young people starting maybe in 7th, 8th grade who just were not being turned on anymore by school. And when I realized and became involved with FIRST back in 1996, you mentioned GM, and it was through the Huron Valley Schools and the GM Proving Grounds.
The hot
Milford.
Team. Team
Hot.
67 is Huron. And
incredible.
And they call their team HOT, Heroes of Tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the model teams for the, you could go to any regional in this country and ask them about some of the real dynasty teams of FIRST, and a few of them always end up being the automotive giants. The Delphi team, the HOT team, they are among the rare few teams that all the other teams really, really try to emulate and model.
Well, when I saw that, it was like a godsend in many ways. This could be the program to turn on those young people who just may be somewhat turned off. They're very bright, but school just hasn't really, knitted them in tightly enough. And what we saw out in Milford and developed from there, the HOT team and the expansion here throughout my district, I just became a promoter and an advocate up here as a state representative, as a senator, and have been an ardent just like you, passionate promoter of trying to put into our state budget funding for FIRST. There's no question of what kind of excitement, and if I could say this, you see a sports event when you go to any of these competitions. The big one for us is usually held in a week or so in Ypsilanti, Michigan at Eastern Michigan University.
I have been there, and it's one of our great, great events. It is every bit as exciting as any other sport event.
Right.
This is, well, it's a science fair, sort of like a sport. Those days are over. We are every bit as exciting as the Final Four or the Super Bowl or the World Series. People go there and they come out with their ears ringing, and they've lost their voices.
Absolutely.
You know, inventing things, creating things, solving problems is about the
Right.
only sport
Right.
where humans compete in the unlimited class.
That's right. And you have raised this to the level of being as important as any athletic sport. And young people who become part of it feel that it's a privilege. It unites high school mentors, it unites the partners with the business community, and it even involves the parents. They get very, very involved. So it's really a fantastic program, and you, of course, are in the home base, Michigan, of the auto pioneer, Henry Ford, who changed the world and manufacturing. And also Automation Alley, which is just down the road a bit in my neck of the woods in Oakland County. All of what Michigan is really emphasizing and trying to raise up is interesting young people in technology and math and science, and also building the kind of relationships that you talk about. Young people learn social skills as well. How do you behave in a team environment to maximize your success? How do you also gain the self-confidence to be a winner? Whether you're writing the materials, designing the sets, or doing the actual work on developing that robot to succeed. But I also want to mention, you then went from the high school level down to the little kids and Lego League. Oh, what a class act, Dean. Tell us a little bit about Lego League.
So I hope that the history books get it wrong and explain what great vision I had to start the Lego League. But the fact is, while I'd been telling people in the first 4 or 5 or 6 years of the robotics competition, we're a real sport in every way. Look, we're changing these kids, we're changing their attitudes, and as you point out, we're bringing in the parents. And also, as you point out, it isn't about the robot. This is about building self-confidence. This is, people justify other kinds of sports by saying that they learn teamwork. Well, if it's so important that they learn teamwork that we can justify these other sports, why, if they try to do teamwork in the classroom, it's called cheating. So here we finally found a place to say, okay, public, parents, mentors, teachers, you believe that sports are justified because of the complexity and the elegance of teamwork, because of the passion it develops. Okay, we're going to put all of that into our sport, but it'll have a content that these kids will take for the rest of their lives, which isn't how to bounce a ball, but how to use technology. So for 5 years, I kept selling the idea that we are like every other sport, and I believed it.
Yeah.
So if I was so smart, why didn't I realize, like every other sport, if you're going to have college level, if you're going to have high school varsity, you need junior varsity. If you have junior varsity, you need Little League. If you have Little League, you need, T-ball. And it never occurred to me. But because we turned out to be a great sport, like every other sport, it grew by itself. By the 4th or 5th year, we'd show up at our events, and not only were all the high school kids passionate about it, they're there with their parents watching and proud and cheering, but they're there with the younger brothers and sisters that are in cheering squads and fan clubs. And all these younger brothers and sisters, many of them from schools where people said, oh, these kids don't like math and science. These young kids are aspiring to be like their older brothers and sisters, and they'd come to us and say, we want to do this.